Horror movies are already too terrifying to watch, but that is not always the case. In some cases, the terrifying events shown in a movie are based on events that happened in real life. So, in the nights when all one wants to do is eat ice cream and watch a horror movie, knowing that what you're watching is something someone went through can make you lose sleep. So, grab your blankets and be comfortable, because you might be surprised and spooked out by some of the entries in this list. The Amityville Horror, 1979. Moving is an overwhelming experience overall, but for some people, it can be satisfying, like moving from a small apartment to a bigger house and starting a new family. Whatever the feelings involved, one never really knows who or what took place inside those walls. In the Amityville Horror, the Lutzes, a family of 5, move to a neighborhood on Long Island. As soon as they move in, they start to encounter the frightening repercussions that originate from the past inhabitants, who were all fiercely killed by their son. The film is based on a book with a similar name, which portrays the actions of Ronald J. DeFeo Jr., who killed his whole family without hesitation on November 13, 1974. Just like as shown in the movie, the Lutz family were so terrified by what they encountered that they moved out in just 28 days and didn't even bother to pack their garments. Dead Ringers, 1988. Jeremy Irons plays identical twin gynecologists, Elliot and Beverly Mantle, in David Cronenberg's film, Dead Ringers. They run a successful clinical practice, even though their personalities contrast. The Mantle twins utilize a common actual characteristic, to pawn female bodies onto another. At the point when Beverly starts to have a maniacal break, deciphering his female patients as freak-like animals, he outlines a course to genuinely distort them with old-fashioned gynecological instruments. After harming a patient, the training faces unsalvageable damage, and the 2 siblings fall further into psychosis. In the light of the genuine story of Stuart and Cyril Marcus, twin gynecologists on staff at New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center, their wonderful lives started disentangling as people around them saw their intellectual capacities declining. Open Water, 2003. Open Water is an amazing example of a thriller that doesn't need to set defenseless people against frenzied and concealed figures. Often the scariest situations involve being a victim to circumstances. It begins on the sun-filled day of scuba diving, taking a plunge in the blue waters of the Bahamas, unexpectedly turning frightening when a couple is abandoned and compelled to deal with the uncertainties of the obscuring sky and what is hiding underneath them. Based on the true story of Tom and Eileen Lonergan, who were abandoned during a scuba campaign along the Great Barrier Reef. The couple was left alone for 2 days before anybody from the fishing vessel realized that they had unaccounted for travelers. The Conjuring, 2013. Many individuals' idea with a thriller are the rationale behind the activities of those being tortured. Notwithstanding, that's effectively managed in The Conjuring, as the film focuses on the adventures of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who, as paranormal analysts, effectively search out disturbing settings, like the previously mentioned Amityville Horror House. The Warren Center is the Perron family, who realizes something is awry with their new home. While it's surely an exemplary setup, the film conveys various stunning shocks that will leave you longing for relief from the visual invasion. The movie is based on the genuine relationship between the paranormal specialists and the affected family. The actual Warrens have gone under analysis from doubters, who have accused them of designing phantom stories, albeit the Perron family has supported their cases, as it identifies with The Conjuring. The Perron's daughter, Andrea, said, "Both my mother and I would just as soon swallow our tongue than tell a lie. People are free to believe whatever they want to believe, but I know what we experienced." The Conjuring 2, 2016. This is the second movie in the Conjuring franchise and is based on the case of the Enfield poltergeist, which tortured a single parent named Peggy Hodgson and her 4 kids. For quite some time, Hodgson and her family claimed that they saw furniture moving by itself and heard thumps and voices. Janet, the youngest daughter, played in the film by Madison Wolfe, became possessed by the poltergeist, who talked through her and told the investigators that he was the ghost of Bill Wilkins, who died in the house. This was substantiated by openly available reports. It wasn't just the Hodgsons who experienced some paranormal activity in this house. More than 30 individuals, including writers, neighbors, and different investigators, claimed to have been witnesses to similar incidents. The Warrens weren't as engaged in the case as The Conjuring 2 would persuade you to think. Indeed, the Warrens made an appearance at the house unannounced and were at first not permitted inside. In regards to the case, the real Ed Warren said, "Those who deal with the supernatural day in and day out know the phenomenon are there. There's no doubt about it." Zodiac, 2007. In the late 1960s, the Zodiac killer terrorized the San Francisco Bay Area, killing and affirmed 5 individuals. However, he asserted in cryptic notes to have killed 37 people. Even more shocking is that the Zodiac killer was never really caught. David Fincher took that frigid story and turned it into the 2007 film Zodiac, which archives the stories of the ones who became fixated on attempting to address the case. Political visual artist Robert Graysmith, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, columnist Paul Avery, Robert Downey Jr., and detective David Toschi, Mark Ruffalo, were all real people who were profoundly associated with the chase after the Zodiac killer and became focused on getting the culprit. All the killings and attempted murders shown in the movie, from the shooting of teens David Arthur Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, and the escape of pregnant Kathleen Johns and her child, are all actual events. All the true crime fans were aware of the ending, but even then, Fincher is able to get people on the edge of their seats, as these men get so close to finally catching the killer. The Exorcist, 1973. William Friedkin's 1973 classic horror film, The Exorcist, is referred to as probably the most startling film ever made. What makes it much more frightening is that it's based on the real exorcism of Roland Doe in 1949. Roland Doe isn't the kid's real name, however, the one used to ensure his family's protection. While Roland became Reagan in the film, Friedkin said that a large portion of what's shown in the film was experienced by Doe's family during the possession. The journals of priests were also consulted to make sure that the story was as close to the actual event as possible. Unusual things began happening to Doe's family after the demise of his Auntie Harriet, with whom Doe was extremely close. As a lonely kid, Doe clung to Harriet, who acquainted him with Ouija sheets and mysticism. After her passing, items would suspend and fly across the room when Doe was close by. Multiple exorcisms were performed on Doe. During the last exorcism, strange marks appeared on Doe's body and his head spun, though this is not verified. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, 2005. The Exorcism of Emily Rose is an inventive take on what it means to not only experience what demonic possession is like, but also the consequences that stem from exhausting every possible means of curing an ailing 19-year-old girl. The story of Annalise Michel, renamed Emily Rose in the film, is appalling. At 17, Michelle was diagnosed with epilepsy and was given drugs to assist with treating the disease. The medications didn't help. Michelle kept on having seizures and started to feel that she was having visions and hearing voices telling her that she was a sinner. She became depressed and turned to religion for help. When Michelle was 23, she had been treated with various meds, but nothing helped, and had gone through 67 exorcisms in 10 months. In the end, she quit eating and died of starvation in 1976. After she was found dead, her parents and another priest, Ernst Alt, were all found guilty and liable for her death.